Good evening and welcome to Going for Two, the only YouTube podcast in human recorded history to feature a male and female host drinking our way through the important topics of the day, as long as they touch the football world and not in that way. Sharona, I hear you're back up to two shows a week and how many beers a week and how many cats?
This is my second beer of the week, and I'm up to 3 cats. 2 cats and a kitten. I did name New Kitten.
Okay, we need to hear this. Unveil
I
it on the
named,
air.
I named, drum roll please, I named New Kitten Iggy.
Iggy, okay. Like Iggy Pop or just
Like Iggy Pop, Iggy Stardust,
all that good stuff?
Mhm.
And tonight we have a very special guest. We have Keith Myers, managing editor of 12th Man Rising, covering the Seattle Seahawks of the Fansided Network. And are you actually located in Washington State?
Yes, I am. Barely. I'm like right on the border, but yes, technically Washington.
That counts.
So before we get into your credentials and the exciting, playoff talk, how does it feel to be in a state where you can legally buy pot, but you cannot play daily fantasy?
That is a weird question because it feels very weird. 'Cause, I don't know. That seems backwards to me. Although technically, I think both should be legal. But hey,
They should be.
nobody listens to me when they make up these policies. So whatever.
I guess so. So have you been like a Seattle or Washington guy all your life? Big fan of the Seahawks?
Huge fan of the Seahawks. Have been since around '84. That's about when I got turned on to football and the Seahawks. Haven't been a Washington guy all my life. I've lived in Idaho and California and Arizona, but always been a Seahawks fan.
Did you move to Washington because of the Seahawks?
No, I started out there, left, came back.
Okay.
So do you have either a Brian Bosworth or a Franco Harris jersey?
I had a Bosworth one a long time ago, but I was significantly smaller than I am now, so I don't have it anymore.
Now, have you gone in with the crowd and you all about the new? I mean, obviously you have this emotional attachment to them because you're winning championships with them. But do you like this look versus the Certs look versus the Steve Largent kind of '80s look?
I was probably the last person to buy into the current look, and if they hadn't had all this success, I probably wouldn't have. I just don't. It's just too busy. The design is. I know the little emblem is supposed to be wings, but to me they look like tulips. Um, I like the colors. The color schemes turned out well, but I really liked the ones that they had when Sean Alexander and Matt Hasselbeck were on the team. That something about that metallic blue that connected with me. The old school ones, it depends on which ones you're going with. The blue one, it's a lighter blue than they have now in the Largent ears. Those were sharp. The
They were
white,
nice.
yeah, the white that they had at the same time, I didn't like at all. So. Which wasn't really a white, it was more gray, and I don't know, just the whole design scheme there was a little weird. But
Speaking of Steve Largent, does everyone in this conversation remember who drafted him originally?
Houston Oilers.
yeah, but didn't they trade him to Seattle for like an
Yes,
It
they
wasn't sure if they
did.
traded him or they just cut him.
The Titans have been tightening since the Oiler days.
Yeah, it's
They
been
traded him. They traded him.
that's I never really got that because like there's only 7 rounds in the draft now, and they got less than that for arguably the second greatest receiver of all time. So
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
that's quite tightening right there.
Yes. Yes.
Oh no, is that the new Clemsoning? I wouldn't mind getting, like they have the throwback jerseys. I'd like to get an Oilers Steve Largent. That'd be kind of fun. But I don't even know if he appeared in a preseason game. That's how soon he was deposited by the team.
I don't remember. I don't think so.
But I visited Seattle, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and I did a stadium tour. And the woman running the tour actually kind of had a bit of an arrogance, like she'd acted like they had already won the Super Bowl, and of course they were about to. it was like, you guys hadn't won anything yet, but now you're like the toast of the NFL. How does it feel to be, one of the top teams?
It's really, really weird. Because if you know anything about the Seahawks in the 90s, you know that we used to be the Browns. Until Mike Holmgren came in 99, we were the Browns. I mean, drafting quarterbacks like Dan McGuire and Rick Meyer, I mean, it was bad. And so to the evolution of being that bad of a team, to being a good team under Holmgren, to being one of the elite teams now, it's surreal. I just don't like. Sometimes it just doesn't feel real. I'm still cynical. To me, it's always like the '90s are just a thing. They, that's kind of I go into every game just kind of expecting the team to lose it, even though they won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it's gotta be hard to get out of that mentality, and I would say most franchises had their like Browns period, but it's usually a relatively short. I mean, the Titans have had the last 6 years; they've been they're getting there, but they need another about 30 years to really reach Brownage.
After 4 preseason games, he was going to be cut, but he was traded instead to the expansion Seattle Seahawks for a 1977 8th-round selection.
Well, they got something out of that.
Yep, 8th-round selection from a Hall of Famer. That's well done, Houston. Well done.
I should look up and let me look up and see what they did with that pick.
And really, what could have happened? I mean, that late '70s Oilers team with Earl Campbell, man, that would have been might have helped them a little bit. Might have got over the hump and beaten the Steelers once or twice. So you still bitter about the Steelers in the Super Bowl?
Yes. Yes. Well, the thing is, I'm less bitter now than I've ever been because the Seahawks won one, and it's not a thing. And then every time they play the Steelers, it just comes right back. So like in between games, it's been a year since they played Pittsburgh. I'm like, you know what? I'm over it. It's cool. They're just another team now. And then they play again, and it's like, oh, the Steelers. It may never go away.
Yeah, it's true, and both teams are the 6 seeds that are very hyped. Although, hey, they're still alive, so good reason.
This does not say which selection it is. The Houston Oilers had 2 picks in the 1977 NFL Draft, and in the 8th round, they selected 2 wide receivers. Steve Davis with their first 8th round selection, and Eddie Foster with their second 8th round selection.
Oh, and yes, Steve Largent probably had more catches in a game than those 2 guys had in their career.
I would say so.
I mean, it's unusual because Steve Largent set these records. Like wasn't he the first guy to get 1,000 catches?
Yeah, and then he had that. He had yards. He had most reception or consecutive games with the reception. He just touchdowns. He was the first one to hit the 100 touchdown receptions. He had all these records, and then Jerry Rice came through and broke all of them. So nobody remembers any of Steve Largent's records because Jerry Rice not only broke them, but he just destroyed them. So
didn't Doug Baldwin break a couple of his records this past season?
He broke a record, but it wasn't one of Largent's. It was most touchdowns in a season. Largent's best year was 12. It got beat by some person who his name skips my mind at the moment, but it was never like a fixture, who had 13 in one year, and then Baldwin had 14. So Baldwin now has that record, but it wasn't Largent's that he broke, which is a little weird because you just expect Seahawk receiver, Largent's got the record, but that was one that he didn't.
Yeah, weird. That is strange.
Yeah.
That is true. So how certain were you that they were pulling it out last weekend?
What time?
I'm sorry, I'm 12 years old. I'm so sorry.
At what time were you? Because before the game, I thought there was no chance that they were going to lose because they just obliterated the Vikings last time, and throughout the game, you just kind of expected the offense was gonna wake up at some point. And as long as the defense kept it close, you knew it had a chance. But when it got to the end of the third quarter and the Seahawks hadn't scored yet, that was, I don't know, that was, there was a point there where you're like, okay, this may not happen, but then it did. So, I
So
don't
what's
know.
up? So what is up with Beast Mode? What's up with Marshawn?
Okay, so he had abdominal surgery. He had a torn muscle in his abs. They said it technically wasn't it wasn't a hernia because there wasn't like the whole intestine thing, but essentially it's the same idea.
Okay.
He was back on Monday of last week. That was the first time that he'd practiced in 7 weeks since he had that surgery. And so everyone said, "Oh, he's going to be back. He's going to be back." And he went. He made it through practice. He was a full participant in practice, and then he showed up after practice. When they were getting everything ready to get on the bus, and he went and told the coaches that he just didn't feel 100%. He didn't feel confident about playing, and so the team goes, "Okay, well that's it." And so, what it came down to, and there's been a lot of reports this way and that way, and a lot of times what there's been some hearsay about, oh, he's just mad at the team, that's why he's not playing. If that was true, he wouldn't be practicing and getting ready to play this week. And the reports I've read and the people I've talked to all say that's kind of nonsense. What it came down to mostly, and Pete Carroll talked about it again today, is this is the first time Lynch has ever had surgery, which is weird for a 30-year-old running back.
Yeah.
He's never had a knee injury. He's never had an ankle injury. He's never had surgery before. And the thought of running and trying to drag 600 pounds of defensive tackles was not going. He was not ready for that. And so
that weather at that.
Yeah, and it was negative 5 degrees plus wind chill. So it was he just wasn't feeling it. It was Pete Carroll said it was a confidence and mental issue. They're hoping he'll be back this week. They know physically he's ready, but he's got to be ready mentally in order to come out and take the field and be with the team. So we'll see.
Plus, they had Magic Mike XXS Kristen Michael. I mean, come on, when you got him, you got to win. How awesome it was! They got to trade him away, and
the dream still lives. The dream is alive.
How many teams get to trade away a player, get a pick for him, and then get him back on the roster the exact week they need him anyway, and get to keep the pick? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's like Pete Carroll right there. Just everything works for him.
Yeah, it's kind of like with a little different, but the Patriots had LeGarrette Blount. The Steelers signed him. The Steelers cut him. And then the Patriots got him back and signed him to an extension and got a compensatory draft pick for him. So That's a pretty good thing. I think it was the Titans made a conditional 7th-round pick, and I'm pretty sure they're not going to give that up. Probably the Cowboys are the same way. It was worth a shot. It was just all the fantasy guys went nuts and couldn't handle it. Couldn't handle the Kristen Michael fun. It was just fun to do our playoff draft last week, and I can't remember. I think it was Nuclear Harley who drafted Marshawn probably in the 2nd round, just crying. I thought I had a contender, man.
Yeah, it's hard because the word out of Seattle last week was he was going to play, and he was going to get 15 to 20 touches guaranteed. And then it's the night before, or it's Friday night, but it's as they're getting on the bus, we get word that he's not even on the bus and not going with the team. And everyone's like, wait, what? What's happened? Like, he just completely caught everyone off guard. So, hey, we got to see Christy and Michael start a playoff game. And no one would have thought that would have happened like a couple months ago. Nobody.
Yeah, and Fred Jackson, who was our Mr. Irrelevant in our draft we did last week. I don't even know if he made any plays, but I had a friend over last weekend on Sunday, and he is from Minnesota, Josh Ducaster. I've had him on the show. Let's just say, the 5 stages of grief. I don't think he was past stage 1 by the time he left the house. Probably should have gotten him a ride home because he was not looking good.
Uh,
He just kept. It'd be like the little kid that like the dog just got run over, and he's just like 10 every 5 minutes he'd say something random like, "Was that field goal shorter than an extra point?" Yeah. He just bad. Gary Anderson flashbacks.
so I
But
actually have.
let's do mention though that Blair Walsh scored every single one of their points.
You
He
know, they
did. He
need.
scored all 9 of their points. I actually have an explanation. It came from John Ryan, the
Right,
of
the
the
punter.
Seahawks, of why that kick was missed, um, and it was the kick before it. I don't know if you remember this, but Richard Sherman was like an inch or an inch and a half away from blocking it, coming off that
Yeah.
right side, and it was close. And so, according to John Ryan, Seattle's punter, they were 1.3 seconds from snap to kick all season. Like, that's their rhythm, 1.3, 1.3, 1.3. After that one that Sherman almost blocked, they sped everything up, and they made it on that the kick at the end was 1.1. So they
Oh.
sped up the whole process. And he says that it would have led to all sorts of craziness because you mess up that rhythm and that timing,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
you can't expect a kicker to make every kick anymore because that timing is just
It's
everything.
really important. Well, that is interesting.
Yeah, there's
And of
definitely
course,
a routine to it.
John Ryan, of course, is a story from that game all in itself because he was the one who did that amazing face plant
Mhm.
early in the
Mhm.
first quarter and broke his nose.
Yes, it has two black
So
eyes.
yeah, which is it's just a nice little like triangle of like bruising and blackness, which like leave it to a punter to break their nose on punt.
And play through pain. Maybe the cold helped him because it probably froze all the blood.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean,
I don't
he
know.
didn't miss any time, right? He stayed the whole game. I mean, for a punter, did he have like
Well,
5 punts?
the Seahawks did go for it on like 4th and 13 or something at one point because they were too far for a field goal and he wasn't ready yet. Like they were still taping him up and trying to make sure he was okay. Um, like on the next drive. But other than that, he stayed out and played the rest of the game and did pretty well. So he's tough. He was on the American Ninja Warrior show, so
Mhm.
he's pretty tough.
Well, dude, the Seattle fans really want Marshawn Lynch back because basically when Lynch and Jimmy Graham went out, that's when Russell Wilson went like ballistic and just blew things up.
Well, Wilson blew up the game before Jimmy Graham went out because he played really well against San Francisco, and he was playing really well with Jimmy Graham for most of the next game, which I think was Detroit, and that's when Graham blew out his knee. So there was a time where Wilson was playing great, and there was Jimmy Graham. So saying that it was when Jimmy Graham went out, I think that's not real accurate. But the thing is that Jimmy Graham went out and Wilson just kept playing great. So it's like, oh, we didn't even notice.
Well, he was
Um,
pretty much a non-factor anyway.
well, he was a non-factor in terms of fantasy football, but he was a major factor on the field because
Okay.
watching the film, and especially watching the all-22 so you can see coverage, and you see Jimmy Graham running down the seam with 2 linebackers and a safety all on him, and you go, well, he's never going to get the ball in that situation, but he's clearly impacting the play and making it
Sure.
easier on Baldwin and Curse and those guys. So,
Yeah.
um,
It's
so
probably why Doug Baldwin was able to have such a fantastic season.
well, yes, in a way, but most of Baldwin's success came after Graham went out, because when Graham went out, Baldwin became the first read on almost every play.
Mm.
Um, and once he became the first read and the primary receiver for the Seahawks, Wilson just kept feeding him and he kept catching him. So if Graham had not been hurt, I'm not sure that Baldwin's stats would have been quite as crazy. But he's just had an amazing year. So
Yeah, he really
uh,
is.
it's all a matter of the
Well,
Seahawks
he
don't
was
throw the
always
ball.
solid, though. I mean, if you ever had him in fantasy football, he was, he was a good flex play
Hmm.
last year or the year. Yeah, because I had him in a couple of leagues.
Which is he is really the only one because the rest of Seattle's receivers they don't throw the ball enough.
Yeah.
I think Wilson averaged like 27 passes a game last year. They just don't. There's just not enough targets for the receivers that they have. So it's really hard for a Seattle wide receiver to become fantasy relevant, except for Doug Baldwin, which gives you an idea of how good Baldwin is.
And Tyler Lockett this year, and the Tyler Lockett benefit first started with Doug Baldwin because he was a good option because of his special team points too.
Mm-hmm. Depends on the league. Yeah, if you got special team points from a receiver, you needed to grab Lockett fairly quickly because he was tremendous in special teams. Just tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
Was it weird for you to see Seattle actually like draft a receiver? Because it seems like all their guys are undrafted.
No, it wasn't weird to see them draft one. It was weird to see one that they drafted work out. Because they've drafted Chris Durham and Chris Harper and a couple of other guys on the top of my head.
Still on the Panthers roster?
Kevin Norwood, yeah, he's on the Panthers. He was active for the Panthers gave up a 6th-round pick for Kevin Norwood. He was active for 1 game and played 13 snaps. That does not seem like a good investment from the Panthers. But again, that's Pete Carroll, right? Things just work out for him. But yeah, so they keep drafting these guys and they don't work out, and so then they go and they sign these undrafted receivers that come in and just beat out the draft picks in training camp, and they roll with it. So the Seahawks currently have 3 undrafted receivers just from the University of Washington on their active roster right now. Of the receivers, the only one of the receivers on the entire team that was drafted is Tyler Lockett.
Mm-hmm.
Because Baldwin, Curse, Smith, and
what about Paul Richardson? Is he not on the roster anymore?
Well, Richardson was drafted, yeah. But he might be IR.
He's on injured reserve, so I wasn't counting him. I'm talking about the active roster right now.
Talk about one who's not working out, because I drafted him in my dynasty league. Didn't go well.
I did this. I did the same thing. I was thinking, it's the end of the draft. I know he'll be back mid-season. It's a dynasty thing, so he'll be good next year or whatever. Yeah, he played 1 game. I think he had 1 catch. That didn't work out well for me.
I can't remember. Didn't he tear his ACL like twice, or was that? I know he's torn it a couple times in his career.
He tore it once in college at Colorado. He tore it last year in the playoffs against Carolina. And then he came back mid-season from that and pulled or did some damage to his hamstring, and they were like, you know what, we'll wait till next year, and they just sent him to IR, and that was all he was going to get.
And did you have high hopes for Chris Matthews this year after the Super Bowl?
I actually did, and part of that was because what he did in the Super Bowl is repeatable. It's not like he's going to get shorter and he can't out-jump guys. It's not like he won in the Super Bowl by his ability to get separation. He was big and slow and ran to a spot and out-jumped people, and that's all he did, and it worked. And I thought, well, if Wilson can continue to throw the ball up, let the 6'5" guy jump up and get it. But they just never got him on the field, and apparently he had some work ethic issues in practice, and eventually they just said forget it and cut him and moved on. So I had some pretty high hopes, but whatever. It's going to be one really weird footnote in Super Bowl history, and that's it. So
it's kind of like the Timmy Smith of wide receivers.
Yeah,
just that great game, and I mean, if he had been the primary receiver in that last pass and had scored the touchdown, he probably would have been the MVP.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been one of the most unlikely MVPs other than the previous MVP from the Seahawks that they got rid of a year later, Malcolm Butler.
Yep.
They had to give somebody the award, I guess.
But, that play, everything was wrong with that final play. But, yeah, if you put Chris Matthews in there, even if he's not the receiver to catch it, even if he's in the Jermaine Kearse role as the guy setting the pick, they probably score that touchdown and win that game. So I don't know. That's a whole nother topic, and you could waste a whole show on
Yeah, it was like the
on
perfect
that
storm.
incredibly painful memory. So
I mean, it was really desperation. Like, basically, if he had run like an in, faked, and went out, there would have been no one within 5 yards of him. But Malcolm Butler just, I got to go for it. We're going to lose the game. I'm going to take a chance, and it worked out.
yep.
And you won the year before, so you got that going for you.
Yeah, that helps. And the whole like we've been twice and one win away from a third straight NFC title game.
Dirk Cutter, by the way, I hate to interrupt everybody, but breaking news, Dirk Cutter has been apparently hired by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as their next head coach.
Seriously.
Ooh, I bet Sharona's got stuff to say about him. Come on.
I think everybody knows my position in that matter.
We've been kind of one-sided here.
Hide your kids, hide your wives.
Because we got the number one
Tampa Bay
Carolina Panther fan in this show tonight, Sharona, on the other side. So we need some hype for Carolina, number one seed, best season in Panthers history.
Chosen.
Serve her. We all know about that.
Huh? Yeah, hey, so what's up? I think it's going to be a good game. I don't think that, I know the Hawks are hot, and when you're hot, you're hot, but when you're not, you're not. And I don't think that they can go into Charlotte and beat the Panthers. And I'm kind of sort of hoping not, because if the Panthers host the NFC Championship game, your girl Sharona is going to be there covering it.
Oh,
why aren't you covering them this week if you get ahead of the game?
I didn't get the offer to do that.
Oh. Well, that sounds like free beer tomorrow, I want to see the victory first.
There's no chance that you can travel to Green Bay or Arizona to cover the Seahawks and whoever wins that other game.
I would actually love to go to Arizona and go to a game there, but no, the offer was Charlotte. So
interesting.
You take what you can get.
Honorary Panthers member. So we're worried about that secondary. Other than Josh Norman, it seems like they have guys that were Pro Bowlers in like 2011. Cortland Finnegan, man, time to get that ring.
Cortland's actually played pretty solid for them. Got to give him, for a guy that 2 thumbs up for a guy. Do the Drew Magary thing. For a guy that, I think you have to say that was a good pickup for them.
Well, they needed somebody.
Yeah, the Seahawks are not scared of Finnegan and whoever comes out of that group to be the nickel corner. I expect Seattle to test those two and basically just not throw it anywhere except for at those two guys, because there's just no need to. I think they're
probably going to have Finnegan on Lockett. That would be my guess.
Patrick Peterson could not stay with Tyler Lockett 2 weeks ago.
I'm just telling you what what I would think.
Lockett beat Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson's overrated.
He's extremely overrated, but one thing he is very fast. And he could not stay with Tyler Lockett on those deep balls. I wouldn't put Finnegan on him. I think that's actually, you know what, Carolina? Put Cortland Finnegan on Tyler Lockett. Do that. Go for it. Seattle will appreciate the long touchdown.
They'll probably play, I would say they'll probably play cover 3.
Does Carolina do Josh Norman like on the one side, or does he kind of move around?
That's a good question. I really.
I was like, if he plays one side, it was like that.
I think they play a lot of cover. I actually do think they play a lot of cover 3.
Remember the Packers season opener where they basically put Jared Boykin on Richard Sherman's side? They were like, all right, that side of the field's done. Let's go the other side. They're like, Jermaine Kearse, who's the mascot? Put the mascot in on Josh Norman.
They might put Josh Norman. I would think that they would put if they do that, I would think they would put Josh Norman on Doug Baldwin.
The tendencies for Carolina, they do play a lot of cover 3, but what they do is they move Josh Norman. They have him flip sides based on where the receiver is. He does not cover the slot guy ever. It just never happens. The Seahawks run Doug Baldwin into the slot if they have a third receiver. He's the guy that slides inside every time. So you're going to get Doug Baldwin against someone other than Josh Norman quite a bit, and I think that's a matchup that Seattle wins. So.
By the way, Ben McAdoo, Giants head coach. What?
Wow. That's surprising too.
Continuity, because their defense was so terrible. What happened to Steve Spagnuolo? Like, he beats the Patriots in the Super Bowl and then just, he's like Rob Ryan now? What? I don't understand. The two
Rob
Ryan jokes sign with the freaking Bills. Oh my God.
That's what I was getting ready to say.
There's going to be a reality show surrounding that.
Oh, I hope so. The Bills need that HBO show, Hard Knocks. If the Bills don't have Hard Knocks, they're doing everyone in America a disservice.
Definitely. So, is Carolina just favored by 3? Is that the line for Sunday?
That was the line initially. I don't know what it is at right now, but it opened.
That's like
Carolina.
break even.
I know. People believe in Seattle.
Like 3 for the. That's like because you get an automatic 3 for the home team, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're the Titans. The Titans are smart though. They're laying in the weeds, and they're like everybody else is signing their head coach. Like, we're just gonna get whatever we want. Of course, they got, as I joked to Sharona earlier today, they already have Mike Mularkey like tied up in a broom closet. We're holding on to him. He's the great secret.
They let Sean Jefferson go.
Well, when you're like on the coaching staff of the Titans and somebody else offers you a life raft, you're like, I'll take that. I don't care if it's kitty size. I'm in. I mean, did you see like the offensive line coach for the Eagles signed as the offensive line coach for like Central Florida? He's like, get me out of here, man. Get me out. So, yeah. Oh, well. But, we could talk about the other games. I had to mention Sharona's guy. She's had, a crush on him for a while. Mike Munchak going for, like, the tackle on the sidelines for the Steelers. He just grabbing the dude and pushing him, and that was awesome.
He grabbed his dreads.
Yeah.
Well, let's set the stage here. It was Reggie Nelson. Reggie Nelson has longer hair than Sharona, and Sharona's got fairly long locks, and they're dreads. And Reggie Nelson was trying to make a play out of bounds and ran into Coach Munchak, I think deliberately, and gave a little bit of an extra shot. And you get don't start none, won't be none.
I feel like, wasn't Reggie Nelson the guy that Chris Johnson ran over on one of his touchdown runs, and he was probably the only guy that Chris Johnson ever ran over in his life?
Yeah.
In like 2009.
Did we lose Keith?
I see the Avatar. The Avatar is real. He might just be going for another beer because being on this show requires you to, drink heavily. I don't blame him. But did you get to stay up late, not so late for your championship game?
I watched every single bit of it, and it was fun and exciting. It was a really good game. I talked about Mike Munchak on the podcast today, by the way.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Nothing but love. Should the Titans bring him back?
Well, the Titans won't bring him back, and he'd be a fool to come back. But I asked I was talking to Ralph Cindric, who is a former player and an agent and a lawyer, and he thinks that he will, in fact, get another head coaching job and will be awesome.
I don't know. You and other lawyers, all those lawyers getting together, it's always a dangerous thing.
It was fun. He's a good guy.
He's like the secret handshake.
Keith, we were talking about Mike Munchak, and Zach and I and me and a lot of Titans fans, excuse me, burp, go at it over Mike Munchak. I am a Mike Munchak defender. I'm happy to do it.
Yeah, he's one of those coaches that he just doesn't get the credit for the things he does well.
He does,
and he's an underrated coach overall, in my opinion,
so.
at least. So.
Yeah. Do you think that he should get suspended for that incident? I said he should. I think he should get fined. I think a fine is appropriate. I do not think a suspension. Now, Joey Porter should get suspended. I think a game.
See, I don't think that either coach should be suspended because, okay. I mean, a fine would be good. The refs allowed Porter and other coaches out because of the nature of the injury. So he was out there. He was allowed to be there because the rule says only the training staff and the head coach. But in certain instances, when there's a really serious injury, they allow other coaches to come out. They said that was a really serious injury. They let the other coaches out. He was there with permission.
But he started something.
Involved. I don't think he started stuff. He was watching it and listening to the different things and some of the stuff that was said. He turned there was something said and he turned his back on it, like it was done, it was over, and somebody came over his back, and that's when the contact with the official was made. So I don't. It's Joey Porter. He always started stuff as a player. I mean, that's who he was.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, I'm able. I try and look at it and go, okay, what did I see in this instance, and not look at his reputation. And I didn't see anything that to me was suspendable. Finable, yes, definitely finable. He should not have been talking to the Bengals players, but suspendable, I didn't see it. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I just had to say two things. One, when I visited Pittsburgh, they were selling T-shirts that said, "Where was Ray Lewis when Joey Porter got shot?" And just to mention again that two of the most notorious plays of the game involved ex-Titans. Munchak with the hair pull, and then we had it was Pac-Man Jones, who's, you still go, he's still in the NFL. I don't know how this is happening. He's been in the NFL like a decade. I mean, it's just, and he's playing well, and he's like in his 30s and a cornerback. It just never happens.
Yeah, he was drafted in 2005.
And I thought he said something, but I guess he ran into a ref or something. That's why they threw the flag. But just like if you throw a flag and that basically wins the game for the other team, you have to really think about that because they had already. The perfect, obviously, you went head-to-head. That was a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 60-something yards and penalties on that last drive.
And did you see that the Steelers were like, hey, we just got this gift horse. They just like immediately put the kicking team on the field and kicked it with like 18 seconds to go. They weren't even messing around. They're like, screw this, we're kicking it.
They made no effort to run the clock down or one handoff, whatever. They're like, no, just kick the field goal, get the points, get out of here.
Well, they probably didn't want somebody to get hurt. I mean, I don't blame them. Do you, Keith?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Game. I mean, Burfict makes that interception. The thing that sucked is I was at a friend's house, so I wasn't even watching the game. So I recorded it, and for some reason, the whole Xfinity setup for me, when you hit the pause button on your recording, it starts showing you like news stories. And the news story they showed was Steelers make amazing comeback. I'm like, I haven't finished watching the game, assholes. Thanks a lot. So I knew they were going to win, and so I was watching it, and I'm like, my wife came down. I'm like, this is like crazy theater of the absurd. I mean, they put Landry Jones in there at first for the game-winning drive, and he throws the interception. They put Roethlisberger back out there, and those poor fans, especially like Cincinnati, Minnesota. I mean, it was like 45 and raining all game and a freaking downpour in Cincinnati. And the last time they won a freaking playoff game, they're playing a team that doesn't even exist anymore. That's how long it's been. And then they lose like that with A.J. McCarron leading you to the victory. I mean, that touchdown he had to A.J. Green should have been like legendary for Cincinnati. And then it was just like,
Yeah, but that's the Bengals in the playoffs, right? No matter who they're playing and how well they play, they lose in the end on something stupid. It's who the Bengals are.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think they've been known for that as much. It would have been perfect if on Saturday the two teams that won playoff games had last won a game in the playoffs against the Oilers, because the Chiefs did it earlier. They beat the crap out of the Texans, and I kept watching it like, okay, I attended the first Chiefs playoff win since the Super Bowl in 1992 or 91. And it's amazing. The Chiefs have had two 20-year playoff win droughts in their history. But they got nothing on the Lions. Nothing on the Lions. But still, it was not. I mean, they just didn't win. It was like Brian Hoyer. So, actually, I don't know if Brian Hoyer actually beat the Titans this year, but the guy who was Brian Hoyer's like third string backup beat the crap out of the Titans twice. So that's good to know. That's something we can put in our pockets, right, Sharona? Oh, I'm sorry, you're a Carolina fan now.
Yeah. We were talking about Jordan Todman today. Well, I forgot. I was interviewing Jordan Todman, guy that the Steelers had picked up, and I don't know if Zach remembers this. Sharona does, but he's a guy, running back, who's been around. He was on the Jacksonville Jaguars roster one year, and I forget who their main. It was probably Maurice Jones-Drew, and I guess he went to anyway. Jordan Todman ran all over the Titans, but then I had to laugh and say, well, of course, everybody runs all over the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans, their division clinching game against the Titans, they were playing B.J. Daniels as like a wildcat quarterback and Brandon Weeden, and a quarterback by committee that nobody ever runs in the NFL, and it worked.
It would probably have been a better idea than them trotting Brian Hoyer out for that atrocity of a game.
Well, I just remember, I mean, as someone who's in Dynasty Fantasy, you know all the running backs. So I know Jordan Todman was like a UConn guy, drafted by the Vikings, cut by the Vikings, then did okay with the Jaguars. But I don't know if I'd ever heard of Fitzgerald Toussaint. I made the joke last week that he was the president in Scandal, because I just know the guy's name is Fitzgerald.
Go Blue!
And he ended up having like 50 yards running and like 60 yards receiving, so he did okay. I don't know if D'Angelo Williams is coming back. I stupidly said for a minute, I'm like, are the Steelers going to be favored in Denver? And then I was like, oh, right, their quarterback's hurt, Antonio Brown's hurt, never mind. Denver's favored. As the home team, number one seed against number 6 should, but not in Carolina. Go ahead, Sharon.
I was interviewing Josh Taylor for the podcast on Friday, right before this show, and according to him, he's a guy who does a show on Trib Live Radio and is a Steelers guy and one of their local anchors. He said that the word is that he's still in a boot, and that his status is going to be probably determined on Friday, along with Antonio Brown.
You keep those pink dreads away from Munchak. For all that good stuff. Didn't he wear? He was the guy who wore like the pink shoes in honor of like some family member died of cancer, and NFL was like, screw you, like $10,000 fine.
It was his mother, and he's got and he does have the pink dreads. Yeah, but let's move all these teams to LA because we weren't successful in our money grab for new stadiums.
We haven't even gotten into that. A friend who I was at his house when the Rams beat the Titans, and it was like a big moment for him because he grew up like a Cardinals fan, and they were mostly horrible. And the Rams came in and like won this Super Bowl in this crazy one-year turnaround. I mean, Dick Vermeil sucked otherwise for them except for that 1 year, and they hit lightning in the bottle, and then they kind of fizzled out with Mike Martz. Remember Mike Martz train? It was a hype train right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just been so bad lately. But you could just tell that the owner, like, didn't he just marry into money? He was just like, screw it. I have to pay $550 million to move my team to LA, and yes, that's easy. I can write that. I actually have that in my wallet, like couch cushions money for this guy. It really is kind of the middle finger to the fan base, but that's what happens with a lot of owners, you know.
Yeah, that's the NFL because the the Rams have a really solid following. I mean, and this is coming from a division rival that gets what feels kind of like like a neutral field game once a year in St. Louis, because the 12s travel so well there, but they don't go to the games partly because the stadium's a dump and partly because they're really mad at the owner, Kroenke, and because the team's been terrible. But there's still a really loyal fan base there. I mean, those are some good fans. They really are. And this is coming from a rival that likes, if anyone's going to talk smack about rival fans, it might be me. But those are some really loyal fans.
The Rams
really
swept you guys
fans.
this year.
What?
The Rams, I know.
Actually, that's a team with way more talent than their win total, but that's another topic.
Yes, yes, it is.
We can get into our opinions of their coach here whenever you're ready. But the Rams fans do not deserve this, not at all. They're great fans, and the NFL just stepped on them. I feel really bad for them. I really do.
Me too.
It's odd that the three teams that want to go to LA are three teams that have left LA. I don't know. The Chargers were in LA like for the first year. That might have been the first year when like the Houston Oilers won the AFL title, but yeah, the Chargers have been there for 50 years, and they're just like bye.
Yeah,
they don't even have a stadium that has broken ground yet. I don't know.
No, not at all. I mean, because no one wanted to put the money into starting construction since there were two bids and they didn't know. Because if the owners had chosen Carson, they didn't want to actually have spent money building anything in Inglewood, so they haven't broken ground or anything like that. And if the owners had chosen Carson, they're not ready to break ground. They still have work to do before they can start building. So that was part of what played into their decision, but it's weird that the Chargers are leaving San Diego. Qualcomm in San Diego. I lived in San Diego for a little bit, and Qualcomm is as bad a stadium as the NFL has ever had. It literally smells like sewage. While I lived down there, the river flooded, and it flooded the entire stadium, not all the way up, but all the concourses and where the teams go, the locker rooms, all the stuff that's kind of underground, the media areas, not the press box, but where they do the press conference and stuff. All that area totally flooded, and when they drained it out, and when I was in there, it smelled like sewage and mildew. It was gross. You go up into the stands and the concrete's cracking, and it's literally a dump. The NFL does not belong in that building, so I get the team wanting a new facility, but for them to leave San Diego, where they've always been, that hurts me. That's just hard because Okay, I'm a Sonics fan. That's probably all you need to say. I need to say
yeah,
about
I was
that.
thinking with the Seattle connection, you're like, oh yeah, that's happened.
I'm a Sonics fan, and so I totally get what Charger and Rams fans are going through, and it hurts me. I don't think the NFL needed to do that to either one of them. So that just is what it is.
It's weird to go from 0 teams to 2, and then they're going to have this temporary situation for I don't even know how long it's going to take to build a stadium.
Well, they said 3 years, which anytime you're building something that big means it's probably 5. But so they're going to have 2 teams playing in the LA Coliseum, which really means there's 3 teams playing there because USC plays their games too. So you're gonna have 3 different teams playing their home games in the LA Coliseum for the next 3 years, which that's kind of messed up, but yeah.
I would really hope that the Rams go back to like their blue and white uniforms, or like that fearsome foursome, or at least the Super Bowl ones, because those gold things, especially the color rush monstrosities. It should never come back. That's my theory, anyway.
I like the old LA Rams uniforms and colors. I really hope that that Rams organization gets together with Nike and brings that color scheme and something that is reminiscent of those old LA Rams uniforms back. Because that I like those ones. Like those are the Rams that I grew up with. Was that color scheme and everything, and in LA. So since they're back there, I hope they bring that stuff back.
Definitely. Well, Sharona, I don't have a large list of over it or not for this week, but I just have one, and I think
Okay.
it's good, and let's see what you say. So Peyton
Ooh.
Manning going for 10. If Peyton loses this week, he will have lost 10 first playoff games in his career. What do you think?
Over it.
Over it. So are we going to see some Osweiler action this Sunday, or is it Sunday? It's Sunday.
Uh, I would not rule it out. Simply because we don't know how really how healthy Peyton is. It does look like he's healthier than he has been. Possibly he can last the entire game. The Steelers are going to go after him, as strong as they can, and as we know, his offensive line has not been, the best this year. So hope not.
I mean, it seems like Carolina has a shaky situation because they're playing a two-time Super Bowl champ, and Seahawks are a good team. But it seems like Denver's a shaky number one seed. But I don't know, like Pittsburgh's definitely beat up. I mean,
They
no
are.
doubt that.
If Ben Roethlisberger can't play, it seems almost certain that Antonio Brown is not going to play. We'll see if D'Angelo Williams can play. But, on the flip side, Denver's defense has been shaky down the stretch and has not played as well as it did in the first, half of the season. And we watched Chris Harris get, absolutely torched not all that long ago. And, that was something that almost seemed inconceivable. So, Martavis Bryant is pretty darn good. Marcus Wheaton playing extremely well. Darius Hayward-Bay has discovered his hands, and of course they have Heath and the running back, the Michigan running back that you mentioned, Toussaint caught 4 passes for 60 yards. So
To me, it
we'll
comes
in the
down
last
to
game,
which Peyton Manning shows up.
yeah.
Because if the
old one or the really old one?
yeah, the really old one. Because if the guy who shows up is the guy who led the NFL in interceptions despite not playing in 6
Yeah.
games, shows up, then I don't
Yeah.
think Denver has much of a chance, even with the Pittsburgh being banged up. But if some resemblance of Peyton Manning shows up that isn't the ancient one that we saw at the beginning of the season, there's just too many injuries on Pittsburgh's side. That's just way too hard to overcome.
Yeah.
Losing your quarterback, your running back, and your top receiver all at once.
But don't we want to see one more Peyton Brady? This could be it. Next week.
If it happens, you know what? Listen, the Patriots have to get through Kansas City, and they're going to be a tough play.
Yeah, it's like, is Edelman going to be okay? And their makeshift offensive line and makeshift running backs. Tom Brady in the playoffs. I'm just hoping for a Tom Brady versus the Ravens that one year where they just got smoked. I'm hoping, because they don't get smoked very often in the playoffs. The Chiefs are hot. I was wondering if they were like artificially hot because they had won the last few games kind of close. But they had a pretty nice resty victory last week. And oddly, the Shandrick West and Spencer Ware duo is pretty good at running back. And hey, look at Alex Smith. He's like not bad.
The interesting thing about the Chiefs is that despite winning 11 straight, they were 1-5 at the start of the year, and the Seahawks were 2-4 at the same time. And those two teams were statistically, if you look at things like DVOA and the NFL Power Index and some of these advanced metrics, those were the two best teams this season, start to finish, and they were both terrible the first 6 weeks, which tells you how good they were in the last 10, because they overcome being terrible to be statistically the best two teams in the NFL for the season, which it's kind of incredible if you think about probability and that kind of stuff. But I wouldn't pick against the Chiefs. I get it. It's the Patriots. It's Brady. It's Belichick. They're really hard to beat at any time, especially in the playoffs. But man, the Chiefs are the hot team in the AFC, and they have been playing like a number 1 seed for the last 11 weeks. They didn't for the first 6, but for the last 11 weeks, they've been playing like a 1 seed. So it's going to be, I haven't made my picks yet, but it's going to be really tough for me to come up with a reason why I won't pick Kansas City.
And if it wasn't for that fumble in that Broncos game earlier in the year, if the Chiefs win that game, which they pretty much blew, they would have been the number 1 seed. And I guess, the Broncos would have played last week. So there's potential. We haven't even talked about the Seahawks rival, the Cardinals. I mean, the Packers, are they back to the good Rodgers, or are they just going to go back and get crushed like they did a couple weeks ago against Arizona?
Well, it depends.
I don't think it's. I'm sorry. No, you please go ahead, Keith. I'm so sorry.
It depends. To me, it depends on what you think of Washington. Because if you think of them as this hot team that played well down the stretch, then you're thinking, oh, the Packers are back. Whatever struggles they were having, they fixed it. They're good. If you think of Washington as being the NFC's version of Houston, making it in because of a terrible record or terrible division, then you're like, okay, so they played a nobody. Now they have to go play a good team. And they got clobbered by that same good team 2 weeks ago. So to me, what you think of the Packers right now has a lot to do with what you think of Washington.
I think the truth is a little bit in the middle there. Definitely Washington benefited from a weak division. There's no question at all about that. The Packers did get hot in that game. Washington's defense had been playing they just had so many injuries. It was very hard to overcome some of those. And Aaron Rodgers just got hot. He just got hot in that game. It's not going to be a 38-8 game this time around, but they play in Scottsdale, going to Arizona and taking on the Cardinals at home. I think the Cardinals right now are the odds-on favorite to win the Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be a very tough game for them to win.
And that's a sentence that's never been uttered before. I was just looking at, I like to look at Pro Football Reference, and the Cardinals have never been as high as the number 2 seed. Never. So this is kind of crazy, and they're doing well. And despite the loss of Honey Badger, I think they're looking pretty solid. I hope they can replay the Packers Cardinals, the last playoff game they played, that crazy overtime game with the touchdown, the last Kurt Warner win. Is anybody going to be recording the Super Bowl one that the NFL Network's replaying, kind of like their pieced together version of the Super Bowl that's coming up? No interest at all? I get why it's a boring game, but it's kind of cool that. I mean, it's weird to think of people who are fans of the show, like Doctor Who, like, oh, there used to be versions of the show that they just recorded over. And that's what they did with the Super Bowl one, at least one of the tapes, maybe both of them, because 2 networks recorded it and they didn't have it. So they had to get it from various recordings. And It's too bad it was kind of a blowout, but it's cool that they're doing it. I don't know. I've been watching a little 30 for 30 on the side.
Well, isn't this the whole reason for NFL Films, was they recognized that they needed to take care of their history, and that their history isn't just the stats on Pro Football Reference, it's the actual games and the video. And so they built NFL Films because they didn't want to lose games like Super Bowl one. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they wanted
And
to.
NFL Films does some excellent job. It's some excellent work.
They wanted the history. So we've reached about the hour point. So Keith, tell everybody where they can find you and read all your good stuff. Because you've been an excellent guest tonight.
You really have been. Thank
And
you
you two
so
haven't gotten
much.
into any fisticuffs, which I'm very impressed.
You can find me. You can find my writing at 12thmanrising.com. I cover the Seahawks. I'm the managing editor there. I'm also the lead writer, which means I write a lot. That's kind of my job. And then I manage a small staff of writers. So that's part of the fan-sided network. You can find me there. I'm not actually writing for anyone else right now except for Game-Sided, which covers video games, but I only write for them about once a month. So if you're looking for my writing, you're gonna have to find it on 12th Man Rising. If you want to talk to me or make fun of me because I say stupid stuff on podcasts, the best place to do that is Twitter. And you can find me there. It's Myers NFL. Myers is Myers. So that's the best way to find me.
You'll have to
Excellent.
come back, or at least, or come on my podcast, and we'll have to talk video games.
Done. Do it. Let me know when.
Exactly. So Sharona, what you up
And
to? I hear you're back up to full capacity, like the
back up to
like the
full
Empire.
capacity. Dad has one more treatment to go, and once that is behind us, I will be back writing full time as well, doing your daily updates and whatnot at PPI. So, but I am back to 2 shows per week now. Back Talk with Sharona. We had our first show this week today, talking Arizona Cardinals with Jess Root of Revenge of the Birds, and as I mentioned earlier, Ralph Cindric, to talk about his excellent book, NFL Brawler. And seriously, you guys, if you haven't read it, it is fantastic. It is so good. And on Friday, Tyler and Blake Meek will be joining me talking Steelers and Bengals.
See, we got it all going on. And tonight we used the terms pull out and small staff. So I feel like we had an excellent show tonight. Zach_Law on Twitter. You can go to ZachOnSports.com for my writings, although it's pretty rare. I should just post the Ralphie heartbreaking scene from The Simpsons to recreate poor Josh's reaction to Minnesota's loss. He's been kind of inconsolable since. But I'm going to enjoy it because we have basically 3 big days of doubleheaders, and then we're down to the Super Bowl. So thanks, everybody, for doing the show tonight. It was a lot of fun, and as usual, we will sign off with Kiss My Grits.
Kiss my grits.